Chapter 1. 3 years without having children, my husband went against my objections and adopted a child. After I proposed a divorce, I was involved in a car accident and passed away. After my death, the person responsible for the accident lay in my husband's arms, her face full of happiness. That wretched woman is finally dead. Our family of 3 can finally be complete. It was then I realized that my husband had long been keeping a mistress and had a child with her. My body hadn't even gone cold, and they were already happily enjoying my wealth. When I opened my eyes, I returned to the day my husband suggested adopting the child. Emily Carter, we're still young. A life with just the 2 of us will inevitably get boring at some point. We need a child to bring joy, my husband, William Carter, said, sitting across from me, trying to persuade me. We can look for a nearby orphanage. I've been to one before, and the children there are very well behaved and obedient. My mother-in-law chimed in from the side. That's right. I only have one son. We can't let our family lineage end here. In my previous life, during this very meal, the 2 of them teamed up, pressuring me to accept the proposal of adopting a child. I firmly refused and angrily retorted, we agreed before marriage that we wouldn't have children. Why are you both going back on your word now? My mother-in-law exclaimed in protest. I'm not forcing you to give birth. A child has already been brought to you, and yet you're still unhappy. I initially thought there was still a chance to turn things around, but the very next day, William Carter brought a young boy home and made him call me aunt. He completely disregarded my objections and forced the child into our lives. When I confronted him, he casually replied, "You can't possibly be so heartless as to not accept a child, can you?" I immediately asked for a divorce. He refused. Furious, I stormed out, only to get into an accident on the road and die on the spot. After my death, my soul wandered and discovered the person responsible for the crash holding the adopted child in their arms, sitting with William Carter, referring to them as our family. It was then I realized everything had been a carefully orchestrated plan. They had plotted my death to seize my assets, so the 3 of them could live happily together, leaving me consumed by anger and despair. The irony was unbearable. Suppressing the emotions in my eyes, I coldly said, "Before we got married, didn't you consider that your family might end up childless? Listen to what you're saying." "At that time, your mother-in-law didn't think so much," my mother-in-law replied disapprovingly. "Seeing others carry their grandchildren must make you envious, doesn't it?" How hypocritical. The truth was, because I had no parents and didn't want children, William Carter pretended to agree with me, also he could eventually take over my wealth. In just 3 years, things have changed so much, I remarked with a half-joking tone. Did you think that just because I married into your family, I'd have no other options? Emily Carter, don't be so harsh, William Carter frowned, looking at me. Recently, seeing other people's children has made me genuinely wish for one of my own. If you don't want to have a child, I won't force you, but you can't deprive me of the right to be a father, can you? Don't put such a noble crown on your head for my sake, I retorted. I gave a cold laugh. Do you still remember what you promised me before we got married? He froze, his voice growing heavier. That was in the past. Can't I regret it now? Sure. I replied coldly, why go looking for a child with an unclear background? Most of these children are abandoned, who knows if they might have some illness. Impossible. My mother-in-law exclaimed, that child is healthy. I've already checked thoroughly. Oh, you've already checked, have you? I said calmly, so now the 2 of you are here just to inform me, is that it? Emily Carter, that's not what I meant. Don't dwell on trivial matters like this. William Carter frowned, not all of these children are abandoned, some are due to other reasons. William Carter, I understand that you want to be a father. As your wife, it's my duty to help you solve this problem. I looked at him seriously, but those children without blood ties can't truly be considered part of your family lineage. If that's what you want, it's not like I can't bear a child. Why don't we have one of our own? What do you think? William Carter was stunned, seemingly not expecting me to say that. He originally thought I could never have children, which is why he dared to blatantly pressure me. When I said I wanted to have a child, he couldn't find any reason to object. But when I said I wanted to have a child, it was only to see how he would react. As if I'd actually have a child for him, dream on. Before William Carter could say anything, my mother-in-law spoke up first. What are you saying? Didn't you say you didn't want children? Mother, you've always said that people's thoughts can change over time. I sneered. Now that I want to have a child, why do you seem unhappy? Emily Carter, don't talk nonsense, William Carter scolded me in a low voice. If you feel that way, Mother would be overjoyed, not unhappy. It's just that, he paused for a moment, his eyes showing concern. Pregnancy and childbirth are very hard on the body. I'm worried about your health. Forcing you because of my selfish desires wouldn't sit well with me. After all, children are children, whether raised from birth or not. I just want a source of emotional comfort. I don't want to make you suffer like that. His words were somewhat incoherent. He and my mother-in-law had clearly anticipated every possible reaction I might have and prepared reasons to counter them, except for the possibility that I would say I wanted to have a child. Chapter 2. So, you're worried about my health. I pretended to be touched. William, I didn't expect you to be so kind to me. William Carter looked a bit flustered. I pondered for a moment. If that's the case, I have no reason to refuse. My mother-in-law's face lit up with joy, but I calmly added, however, I have one condition. What condition? If you truly want to find emotional support for our future together. I stared at both of them, enunciating every word clearly. I want to choose for myself. My mother-in-law was about to object, but William Carter quickly agreed, of course. I stood up and walked away, faintly hearing my mother-in-law whisper, if you let her choose, then Ethan Green. The rest of her words were unclear. Initially, they thought I wouldn't agree, planning to bring that child directly here and force me to accept. If I agreed, I'd be dragged into a long battle with the third party and even have to raise her child. If I refused, they'd orchestrate an accident before the divorce to kill me, allowing William Carter to inherit my assets legitimately, just like in my previous life. I've lived once before, there's no way I'll let that happen again. The disgusting faces of this family make me nauseous, and I'm determined to take revenge for everything that happened in my past life. After the uproar I caused, William Carter was so flustered he didn't come to the room until late at night. He cheerfully announced that everything was ready, and we'd visit the child tomorrow. I flipped a page of my book and said slowly, there are 3 orphanages in the city. This can't be rushed, we need to visit each one. He hesitated, his tone sounding like negotiation. I've already arranged everything with the director of one orphanage. We can't go back on our word. We'll go tomorrow morning. Is it that urgent? I looked up at him. Even if we visit in the morning, we can't bring the child home by noon. The paperwork will take at least a month. There are so many children, and people visit every day. We need to go early to pick one we like. Do you think this is a vegetable market where you can just pick and choose? I closed the book. Fine, tomorrow morning then. But let me make this clear, I prefer a girl. He seemed about to say something else, but I had already turned over to sleep. With just that one statement, I was sure he'd toss and turn all night, unable to sleep. I had a beautiful dream throughout the night, feeling refreshed, while William Carter showed up with dark circles under his eyes, looking utterly exhausted. My mother-in-law had woken up early to prepare everything, clearly excited and just waiting for the moment to head out. As for me, not only did I wake up later than usual, but I also took my time showering, carefully putting on makeup, and leisurely having breakfast. It wasn't until almost noon that we finally set off for the orphanage. On the way, my mother-in-law's face looked visibly displeased, clearly annoyed by me. William Carter, on the other hand, appeared calm, though his slightly quicker steps betrayed his current anxiety. When we arrived, the director warmly welcomed us and led us to the children's play area. I immediately spotted a boy named Ethan Green, who had been adopted in my past life. Standing next to him was a woman in the orphanage uniform, Olivia Green, William Carter's lover and the mastermind behind my tragic death in my previous life. Among the many children around, she only seemed to care for Ethan Green, paying no attention to the others. Upon seeing us, she hurried over, her body seemingly accidentally brushing against William Carter. My mother-in-law's eyes lit up as she quickly picked up Ethan Green in her arms, smiling brightly. William Carter ignored Olivia Green and walked over to me, pretending to assess the situation before asking, "Emily Carter, what do you think of that boy? Our mother seems to like him a lot." One might even think they were already acquainted, I replied sarcastically, watching them put on their little show. Then I turned to Olivia Green and asked, "What do you think? Which child here is the most well-behaved?" She hadn't expected me to ask her and instinctively glanced at William Carter before stammering, "Ethan Green is very good, obedient, and sensible." "And what about the little girl?" She froze for a moment and quickly said, "Ethan Green is the most outstanding child here, none of the others can compare to him." "If he's so outstanding, why hasn't any parent adopted him yet? Besides, I think he's pretty ordinary, rather unattractive and too noisy." I showed a look of disdain. "I don't like boys." "Don't you have any girls?" "What are you saying?" She immediately became agitated. "How dare you call Ethan Green unattractive? Who do you think you are? Please show respect to my wife." William Carter interrupted loudly, cutting her off. Olivia Green's eyes turned red as she bit her lower lip and pointed to a little girl. "That girl over there." It was an adorable little girl with rosy cheeks, playing a game of mother hen and chicks with a group of other children. I walked over, crouched down, and smiled as I chatted with her. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Olivia Green clutching William Carter's sleeve tightly, her face filled with unwillingness. I took out my phone and snapped a few photos. The result of the visit was that I liked the little girl, Lily Young, while my mother-in-law was adamant about adopting Ethan Green. My mother-in-law was furious. "I want a grandson. What's the meaning of adopting some random girl with an unclear background?" "All the children here have unclear backgrounds," I said calmly. "Mom, raising a grandson costs a lot of money. When he grows up, we'll have to buy him a car, a house, and pay for his wedding. William's salary isn't high, and even with your pension, it wouldn't be enough." "Isn't there still you?" My mother-in-law shouted, "We're all family. What makes you think you don't have to contribute money to raise my grandson?" "Oh, she's already calling him her grandson." Chapter 3. I sneered coldly inside, but my face remained calm. "Mother, I've already said I don't like the boy. He has no blood relation to me, so why should I spend my money to raise him?" I emphasized the last sentence. "What do you mean by your money?" My mother-in-law, unable to contain her anger, snapped, "You married into our family, that wealth belongs to the Carter family. You must hand it over." I chuckled coldly. "William Carter and I signed a prenuptial agreement. That money is mine, not the Carter family's." This was precisely why William Carter was determined to see me dead. As long as I was alive, the assets I owned before marriage would never belong to him. But once I died, as my legal husband, he could rightfully inherit them. "Emily Carter. That's going too far." William Carter frowned, his tone full of reproach. "You have no family of your own. Mother loves you and treats you like her own daughter. We're all one family, how can you speak so distantly? Not having family doesn't give the two of you the right to exploit me. Don't use the excuse of being one family to pressure me. Besides, what about all the promises you made before, not just the prenuptial agreement?" My voice turned stern. "In any case, I don't like that ugly child. If you two won't agree, then this discussion is over." My mother-in-law screamed and lunged at me, gripping my neck with all her strength, her face twisted with rage. "Who do you think you are to refuse? You dare to defy me? Dream on." I was not willing to back down either. I grabbed her hair and yanked it hard while delivering a sharp kick to her calf. In the past, I had always held back out of respect for her as an elder. Besides, I didn't have any family of my own to rely on, so even when she harshly criticized me, I would just endure it silently. Who would have thought it would come to this in the end? Wearing pointed high heels and using all my strength, I kicked her hard. She screamed out in pain and collapsed onto the ground, crying as if she was on the verge of death. This is truly sinful. How could my son marry such a vicious woman like you? You even dare to lay hands on your mother-in-law, Emily Carter. You're nothing but a cruel, heartless woman. Just because you don't want my grandson in this house, you're scheming all kinds of things. You're truly, she continued to curse me incessantly. William Carter quickly shouted to stop her, helping her up as he scolded me angrily. Emily Carter, no matter what, she's still your elder. You should show respect. What kind of daughter-in-law behaves like this? Respect? I let out a cold laugh and tossed a handful of hair I had pulled out right in front of her. She tried to strangle me. Should I have just let her? William Carter, she's your mother, not mine. If you can't handle this, we can get a divorce. Divorce. Let's. Divorce. My mother-in-law was practically hysterical, screaming in a shrill voice, divorce her. Let's see who would dare marry a woman like you. I nodded calmly. Fine. Divorce it is. Emily Carter. My mother said that out of anger, and you're really going along with it? William Carter hurriedly tried to mediate, helping his mother into her bedroom. Calm down, will you? Stop threatening divorce at the drop of a hat. I slammed the door and walked out, deliberately wandering the streets until evening before returning home. Before I even stepped inside, I overheard Olivia Green's voice. That wretch won't suddenly come back, will she? William Carter replied, don't worry. If she's angry, she won't stop sulking. She won't come back unless I go and coax her. That vile woman. I won't let her off so easily. Olivia Green fumed. If worst comes to worst, why don't we just kill her and be done with it? William Carter fell silent for a long moment before responding, I think she might already suspect something. We can't rush this, we need to plan carefully. I recorded their conversation and then entered the house. Everyone stood up, staring at me in shock. Well, everyone's here, I see. I feigned surprise, my gaze sweeping past William Carter and my mother-in-law, then stopping at Olivia Green. Oh, I remember now, Aunt Green from the orphanage, right? I smiled brightly, it's so late already, Aunt Green, what brings you to my house? Honestly speaking, Olivia Green wasn't that old, but the state of a woman who's given birth is always different. Moreover, she had been busy recently, her face pale and somewhat haggard. Calling her aunt made her expression darken, and she unconsciously clenched the edge of her clothes. William Carter hadn't expected my sudden return and hurriedly explained, she's here on behalf of the director to consult us, Emily Carter, don't misunderstand. Even if you are prone to jealousy, there's no need to act like this. I glanced lightly at Olivia Green and unexpectedly said, Mrs. Green, pregnancy and childbirth must be very exhausting, right? She froze, seemingly not understanding, so I continued. You don't look very old, probably around my age, but it seems you've already had a child. Indeed, my decision not to have children was the right one. William, you said you were afraid I wouldn't handle it well. At first, I didn't believe you. Now, I see you truly care for me. A fleeting look of ferocity crossed Olivia Green's face, but she forced a smile. My family's situation isn't great, certainly not comparable to yours. My mother-in-law, standing nearby, chimed in with a mocking tone, a woman who doesn't bear children, can she still be called a woman? If you can't have children, what's there to say? I calmly looked at her and smiled faintly. You're right. A woman who doesn't have children can hardly be called a woman. But then again, not everyone has the ability to bear children. That's why adopting a child isn't an easy matter either. And by the way, the issue of children in the family should be a matter between my husband and me, not something for outsiders to interfere with, right, Aunt Green? I emphasized the last sentence, looking directly at Olivia Green, leaving her with no choice but to remain silent, her eyes filled with resentment. Chapter 4. Women who don't have children can't be called women, is that it? I raised an eyebrow in surprise. Then what should they be called? Men? My mother-in-law slammed the table in anger. Emily Carter. Stop talking nonsense. Let me make it clear to you, Ethan Green is my decision. Whether you agree or not, you have to agree. I kept my expression neutral and turned to William Carter. What's your opinion? Do you agree with your mother? William Carter's face remained cold, and he said nothing. Don't act like I'm some kind of villain here. I never said I didn't agree. I sighed. I just said I don't like that ugly child and don't want to spend money on him. If you want to bring him back, fine, but let me make it clear, I won't spend a single penny on him. My mother-in-law was furious and lunged at me, but William Carter held her back. He stared at me intensely. A daughter would be acceptable, then? I shrugged. Well, that ugly child is out of the question. But Lily Young, I like her a lot. He nodded firmly. Fine, then it'll be Lily Young. Olivia Green immediately looked worried, but William Carter stopped her from speaking. Without sparing them another glance, I went straight to my room to pack. My friend just broke up and wants me to stay with her for a few days. William, let me know if there's any update. William Carter nodded, his expression softening back into the gentle demeanor he used to have. It's late. Do you need me to take you there? No need. I didn't care about them anymore and turned to leave. In the current situation, they probably wanted me gone more than anything. William Carter agreeing. With me was no surprise. At most, they'd adopt Lily Young now and wait until I was dead to bring Ethan Green back. There was no need to tear things apart and risk divorce over this. I stayed at my friend's place temporarily and told her that William Carter had been unfaithful, and I might get a divorce. My friend was outraged and immediately consulted a lawyer that night. She began helping me gather evidence of William Carter's infidelity, determined to ensure he walked away with nothing. As someone with no family of my own, I could only rely on my friends to help me fight for justice. After just 2 or 3 days, William Carter called me, saying that his mother had been secretly visiting the orphanage to see Ethan Green. She was so fond of him that she couldn't bear it anymore and insisted on bringing him home. Over the phone, I could hear her crying. In the end, I don't care. Ethan Green is my biological grandson, and I must bring him home. No one can stop me. Unless I die. Otherwise, this household is not her place to decide. William, what kind of daughter-in-law did you marry? She's opposing me at every turn, trying to drive me to my grave. She cried loudly, as if afraid I wouldn't hear her. William Carter's voice was filled with helplessness. Emily Carter, I've been trying to persuade my mom for days, but she won't listen. Can you reconsider? Apparently, Olivia Green didn't agree, and over the past few days, she'd caused quite a stir. When being firm didn't work, she resorted to playing the victim, coming up with this approach. If I still didn't agree, the next step would be making a scene, even threatening to harm herself, and blowing the situation out of proportion so the entire neighborhood would know. William, your mother is getting old, don't let her suffer anymore, I said, my voice full of concern. Besides, she likes Ethan Green so much, so let's bring him home. As her daughter-in-law, I should certainly respect her wishes. William Carter was overjoyed. You agree? I don't see any reason not to, I replied with a smile. She likes Ethan Green, and I like Lily Young. There's no conflict there. I've already checked, we can adopt both children at the same time. Both children? My mother-in-law snatched the phone and shouted, Emily Carter, are you out of your mind? Do you know how much money it will cost to raise 2 children? Don't worry, I'll handle all of Lily Young's expenses myself, I replied coldly. If you feel the house is too crowded, I can take Lily Young to my own home. Let me make it clear, If you want Ethan Green, then you take care of him yourself. I won't spend a single penny on him. Emily Carter, how could you say something like that? William Carter said angrily. On one side is you, and on the other is my mom. Can't you be a little more understanding? Stop making things difficult for me, will you? How so? I've made it clear that I don't like it, yet your mother insisted on bringing them over. When I said we shouldn't interfere with each other, you weren't happy either. Can't you people survive without targeting my premarital assets? I sneered coldly, my tone firm. I've already agreed to your desire to adopt a child, William Carter. If negotiation isn't possible, I think divorce is the best solution now. Without waiting for his response, I hung up, making it clear there was nothing left to discuss. About 20 minutes later, William Carter called back, reluctantly agreeing to send both children back. On the other end of the line, my mother-in-law screamed curses at me, wishing I'd get hit by a car. I acted as if I hadn't heard a thing and returned home to retrieve William Carter's premarital health report, which clearly stated he was infertile. That's right, William Carter is completely incapable of having children. When we underwent premarital health checks, a nurse who happened to be an acquaintance of mine called to inform me immediately. Back then, I thought, since we didn't intend to have children anyway, I'd keep it to myself to avoid hurting his pride. I took the report home and never told him. I stayed silent to protect his dignity, yet he went and had a child outside our marriage. Judging by Lily Young's age, around 3 years old, it coincides with the time we had just gotten married. Olivia Green must have realized she was pregnant and sought out an honest man to take responsibility. And William Carter, along with my mother-in-law, held on to hope and truly believed the child was their own flesh and blood. It's laughable. I want them to go through all the trouble of bringing that child back, only to discover it's not their biological offspring. That would be truly satisfying. Chapter 5. For a few days while I was away from home, Olivia Green practically stayed at my house the entire time. A kind neighbor advised me to return quickly, otherwise, this woman might just replace the homeowner. It seemed Olivia Green was irritated by me and was trying to assert herself, attempting to show dominance in front of me. She might not care, but William Carter certainly did. He still had his eyes on my premarital assets, so even if he was pretending, he needed to put on a show. I returned unexpectedly, choosing the evening to come back. As I opened the door, I saw the two of them sitting on the sofa watching TV, snacks in hand, clearly not expecting my sudden arrival. William Carter immediately got up to greet me. Emily Carter, why didn't you let me know you were coming back so I could pick you up? I stared at them, placing my keys heavily on the table. What's wrong? Did I ruin your little arrangement? What nonsense are you talking about? William Carter's expression changed. Olivia has been coming over frequently because of the child. At the orphanage, she's the only one who's truly dedicated. Then why does she have to stay here until midnight? I replied sharply, showing no courtesy. Mrs. Green, are you aware that William Carter is a married man? You've been hanging around my house so often, what exactly are your intentions? A fleeting look of malice crossed Olivia Green's face as she was about to explain, but my mother-in-law emerged from the kitchen, speaking with displeasure. I'm the one who asked her to come over. So what? William Carter breathed a sigh of relief and quickly said, Mom, Emily Carter misunderstood. Please explain to her. Explain what? People with filthy minds see filth everywhere, my mother-in-law scoffed, affectionately holding Olivia Green's hand. Olivia understands me. She knows how to talk to me, unlike some people who act like strangers, despite being family. Who knows what sins the Carter family committed in a past life, to end up with a daughter-in-law like you? She raised her eyebrows and glared at me. What? You finally found your way back? Of course, I had to come back. Otherwise, the mistress of this house might just be replaced. I kept a calm expression as William Carter whispered in my ear, promising that he wouldn't let Olivia Green come over again. He thought his voice was low, but little did he know, Olivia Green, standing behind him, looked increasingly upset, seemingly trying to hold back her emotions. "William Carter, I came back this time to give you something." I pulled a premarital health check report out of my bag and handed it to him. "I found this at home, it's your health report." I didn't pay much attention to it before, but William, it seems like you're infertile. William Carter froze, staring blankly at the report in his hand, his body trembling slightly. His mother nearly screamed, "That's impossible." Olivia Green's face turned pale, her lips tightly pressed together in silence. I calmly explained. "That's what the results showed back then, William. It's not a big deal. After all, we didn't plan on having children. Once you adopt Ethan Green, you can treat him as your own." "Stop spouting nonsense," his mother shouted, glaring at me as she charged forward. "You're his wife. Why are you slandering William like this? What's your real intention?" The atmosphere was almost comical. William Carter's face was filled with disbelief, struggling to accept the truth, while Olivia Green remained silent. Only his mother refused to believe it, continuing her tirade against me. "What slander? Why use such harsh words?" I said, feigning surprise. "William and I agreed before our marriage that we wouldn't have children, so whether he's infertile or not doesn't matter to me." "Mother, didn't you say bloodlines don't matter? Once you bring Ethan Green home, he'll be your biological grandchild in every sense." Perhaps it was the mockery on my face that drove her over the edge. Suddenly, my mother-in-law lost control, lunging at me and slapping me across the face, cursing loudly. "You wretched woman. Today, I'll tear your mouth apart." If I had meekly let her hit me, my life would have been a waste. As she prepared for a second slap, I kicked her down, pinning her to the ground and slapping her twice. "You old hag, did you really think I'm that easy to bully?" My mother-in-law screamed like she was being murdered. "Help! This wicked woman is trying to kill me. Help!" No one expected me to fight back. William Carter hurriedly pulled me away, shouting furiously, "Are you crazy? That's my mother." "So what if she's your mother? Does that give her the right to bully me?" I was filled with indignation, spat on the ground, and shouted. "William Carter, I get it now. You like this woman, don't you? Fine, I've had enough of this family too. Let's get a divorce. Go with whoever you want. Divorce. Get out of my house immediately." My mother-in-law cried hysterically, struggling to get up and hit me, her spit flying everywhere. "Oh heavens, this is outrageous. How dare you fight back against me? William Carter, if I live in this house, she won't." "Enough, Mom. Calm down." William Carter angrily yelled at me, "Emily Carter. Apologize to my mother right now." "Apologize?" I sneered coldly. "Never. You brought this Green woman into our house, thinking I wouldn't see through your intentions? Let me tell you, William Carter, we are done. You shameless woman, serves you right for being an orphan." My mother-in-law, driven mad with rage, started babbling nonsense. "Let me tell you, don't think my son can't live without you. Once Ethan Green comes here, you'll suffer for sure. You're as good as dead, let's see how arrogant you'll be then." She was truly uneducated, always resorting to aggression to solve everything. Just a little provocation, and she'd spill everything, afraid I might feel triumphant. William Carter tried to stop her, but it was too late. My face was filled with horror as I nodded repeatedly. "Well done, all of you. Now I understand why you suddenly wanted to adopt a child, it's all part of the scheme." I pointed at Olivia Green, shouting at the top of my lungs, "It's her, isn't it? You've all been colluding for a long time. Ethan Green is your child with her, isn't he?" William Carter's face turned pale as he reached out to grab me. "Emily Carter, my mother is just rambling. Don't get so worked up." I pushed him away, stepped forward, and slapped Olivia Green with all my strength, yelling, "You despicable woman. Today, I'll teach you a lesson." Chapter 6. This slap of mine was delivered with great force, and Olivia Green's face immediately swelled up. She clutched her face for a long moment before reacting, then screamed and lunged at me to fight. "How dare you hit me? What gives you the right to hit me? You seduce someone else's husband, being a mistress must feel great, doesn't it?" I did not back down. The deep hatred from my past life only fueled my grip on Olivia Green as I struck her repeatedly, even yanking out a handful of her hair. Olivia Green screamed for help, trying desperately to shield her face. William Carter attempted to intervene several times without success, ultimately pulling me away, his eyes red with anger. "Emily Carter, have you caused enough trouble yet? William Carter, are you defending this woman now?" I laughed coldly in my fury. "Oh, I see. You think just because she bore you a child, you have to protect and cherish her? How touching. Even more touching if that child is actually yours." His expression shifted, and he shouted. "What health check? I don't believe any of it. Emily Carter, did you already know all this and come back here just to put on this show? If I had known earlier, I would have castrated you while you were asleep." I spat through gritted teeth. "Don't believe me? Then go ahead and keep raising someone else's kid, you idiot." He seemed ready to say something else, but I shoved him away and turned to leave. "Emily Carter, you need to explain this clearly." He stepped forward to grab me, but I slapped him hard across the face and snarled, "Scumbag," before storming off. It was only after leaving that place that I could no longer hold back, my entire body trembling uncontrollably. To be honest, at first, I wanted to use a gentler approach to inform William Carter about this matter, ensuring that everything was perfect. But when I saw Olivia Green's face and recalled her triumphant expression from the previous life, I suddenly changed my mind. The hatred from my past life had been buried deep within me, weighing heavily to the point where I could barely breathe. Looking at her fake expressions, I nearly clenched my teeth in anger, but I had to maintain a calm demeanor to deal with them. They had bullied me like that, I couldn't endure it any longer. Only by confronting them like a rogue could I release the pent-up resentment I had carried for so long. When William Carter learns about this, he will probably spend the next few days frantically trying to verify the information and then come to me to reconcile. That's just the kind of person he is. As long as it benefits him, being human or a devil makes no difference to him. Previously, when I didn't want to have children, he immediately sided with Olivia Green without hesitation. But if Olivia Green's child isn't his, he will shamelessly come to apologize to me anyway. No matter what happens, I will never let the tragedy of my past life repeat itself. Ethan Green's biological father is a rogue named Michael Green, who spends his days idling around, finding ways to take Olivia Green's money whenever he runs out, often beating her and dragging her by the hair in public. In my past life, I witnessed firsthand how Michael Green treated Olivia Green and understood why she desperately sought a protector, even willing to kill for it. Her suffering was entirely self-inflicted, while all my pain stemmed from her. I managed to get Michael Green's phone number and then sent him a photo of Olivia Green that I had taken at the orphanage that day, along with a picture of her holding William Carter's hand with a coy expression. He immediately called me, demanding to know who I was. I didn't reply, but mentioned the name of the orphanage where Olivia Green was working. I added that she was currently involved with a wealthy man and was on the verge of success. If someone wanted to take money from her, now was the only chance. I claimed to be the legitimate wife, accusing Olivia Green of having an affair with my husband and even giving birth to his child, firmly stating that I could never forgive her. He sneered, "Are you talking about that child? That's my kid." Feigning excitement, I promised him $20,000 to teach Olivia Green a lesson, ensuring she wouldn't forget it anytime soon. He agreed and provided me with an exact time so I could watch from a distance. In recent days, William Carter had been persistently calling and texting me, pleading to meet and talk. He spoke so convincingly, saying we had been in love for 2 years, married for 3, and that it had taken so much effort to get to where we were today. He insisted we couldn't end things because of an unrelated woman. He vehemently denied any relationship with Olivia Green, claiming their frequent contact was only due to the adoption process. He explained that his mother got along well with Olivia and had invited her over, but there was nothing more to it. It seemed he had gone for a checkup and confirmed he was infertile. Thinking about how he had been so adamant about bringing the child home, only to discover it wasn't his biological child, and how he had torn everything apart over this, was laughable. I asked him, "Do you still plan to adopt Ethan Green?" He firmly refused, his voice weary. Emily Carter, my mother was deceived by Olivia Green. Ethan Green is her illegitimate child. She couldn't afford to raise him, so she sent him to the orphanage to find a good family. This time, I'm on your side. If you want to adopt, bring Lily Young home. I'll treat her as my own daughter. If you don't want children, I won't force you either. Emily Carter, please come back. Let's not divorce. You're the only one I have. I stayed silent, pretending to consider his words. When he called my name anxiously, his voice on the verge of tears, I finally responded. All right, but I really like Lily Young. It's been days since I visited the orphanage. Take me there to see her.